the universities and marketing departments at universities are leaving a lot of money on the table, are leaving a lot of butts in seats, enrollment on the table, and just visibility, period, on the table if they are not helping their faculty understand how to promote themselves. Because them promoting themselves as faculty members funnels directly into the university in a lot of ways.
Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast on the EdUp Experience Podcast Network. This is a show dedicated to helping higher ed marketers tell better stories, create better content, and enroll more students. My name's John Azzoni. I'm the founder at Unveiled, and we're a video production company working specifically with college marketing teams to make it easy for them to scale up and even automate their student and alumni success stories through our subscription approach. And you can learn more about that at unveiled.tv, and that's UNVEILD.tv. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to have you. And if you're wanting your college and university's content to resonate on a deeper emotional level with prospective students, with alumni, with parents, whatever, I want you to subscribe to my free newsletter. Every week I send out tips and insights on creating more emotionally resonant content, including examples and best practices from other institutions, articles and blog posts, that week's podcast episode, and much more. So head over to unveiled.tv/newsletter and sign up. All right, let's get on with the show. My guest today is Dr. Sheena C. Howard. Dr. Howard is a professor of communication. She is an award-winning author, filmmaker, and scholar. In 2014, Sheena became the first Black woman to win an Eisner Award for her first book, Black Comics: Politics of Race and Representation. She's also the author of several critically acclaimed books and comic books on a range of topics. Sheena is a writer and image activist with a passion for telling stories through various mediums that encourage audiences to consider narratives that are different from their own. So, Dr. Howard, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so we always like to start out on this show, and I'll just give you a warning. I'm getting over a cold, so my voice is a little, my voice like started going out, and it's kind of just like kind of been hanging out in this like raspy vibe. So, but we always like to start out on kind of a personal note. But so tell me something that people might be surprised to know about you.
Something that people might be surprised to know about me might be just my seemingly random assortment of degrees. So I have a business degree, actually, in marketing. That was my undergraduate degree. And my master's degree is actually in graphic design. And my PhD is in rhetorical communication. So, rhetorical and intercultural communication. So, I think that probably would surprise people, but as you get to learn what I do for a living in my journey, it will all make sense.
Okay, interesting. On that note, tell us a little bit about your journey to bring us up to speed on kind of your background and how you arrived at the work you do today.
Yeah, so I started my PhD when I was 23 years old. So, I was in the classroom with a lot of older people who actually had, and older by older than me, who actually had like experiences that I just hadn't had yet, whether it just be work or life experiences. And I think because of being a young person doing a PhD who had no idea what she wanted to do for a dissertation, I did my dissertation on the Boondocks comic strip. And in 2007, doing a dissertation on comics wasn't cool. Like, it wasn't like it is today, where like there are programs that have comic studies and like this is an acceptable thing to study. But I happened as a 23-year-old to just be interested in the Boondocks comic strip, which a lot of people listening may know it as the animated television show that is slightly inappropriate. And but when you listen to my educational background, it probably all makes sense. I wanted to do something visual. I wanted to obviously study something rhetorical. So that allowed me to study the rhetorical language of something. And I was just always interested as a young person in not having my work behind an academic paywall. The idea of just other scholars citing my work on like Google Scholar and those types of places just was too limiting for me. I wanted my work to, yes, be accepted in academe, but really be for people outside of academe as well. And so that's how we
Mm.
get to what we're here to talk about today, which is as a faculty member, the importance to me of building a brand. And just so happened that I was right because in 2007, there wasn't social media like it is today. Today, if you are a professor, you absolutely should be marketing yourself and building your brand. And not only helps you, but it also helps your university. And so I'm sure we'll get into that in the upcoming questions.
Yeah, so we are talking today about some learning from a book that you wrote called Academic Branding, a step-by-step guide to increased visibility, authority, and income. And so, in our pre-call, we talked about just the importance of faculty and, PhDs and things like that, building their brands and doing TEDx talks and things like that, and getting media coverage, and how that actually benefits the marketing and communications of the college. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But tell me your perspective on that. Talk about how a college or university benefits when faculty builds their brand and grows their audience.
I think that the universities and marketing departments at universities are leaving a lot of money on the table, are leaving a lot of butts in seats, enrollment on the table, and just visibility period on the table if they are not helping their faculty understand how to promote themselves, because them promoting themselves as faculty members funnels directly into the university in a lot of ways. If my academic book is featured in the New York Times or LA Times or Washington Post, which it has been, Rider University gets that really free press from me just being out there. And it has a correlation to the number of hits that the university is going to see on my Rider University profile page. And I know this for a fact, because I do this work. And so, we'll get into all of the specific benefits as we go along in this conversation as well.
Yeah, tell me what you do at Rider. Tell me about your relationship with Rider University.
Yeah, at Rider University, I am a full-time professor in the Department of Communication, Journalism, and Media. And so I've got all of my promotions. I'm a full professor. I've been there since 2011. So I lost count of how many years that is, but it's a lot. It's the longest job I've ever had, and I don't plan on leaving.
Awesome. So you talk in your book about 9 pillars of this overall strategy for professors, researchers, and things building their brands. The first 6, as we talked about in our pre-call, are most relevant for our audience, higher ed Marcom leaders. So let's talk about all 9, but then we'll hone in on the first 6. So just go down the list. What are the 9 steps? And then we'll kind of back up and start from step 1 and go 1 through 6.
Yeah, for sure. So the book is broken up into 3 phases. So it's going to be clarity, connection, and capital. And it's 9 steps. So there's 3 steps in each phase. This book is based off of my Power Your Research program. The phases are called something different in the actual coaching program, but it's the same. It's just when you translate something to a book, some things have to be modified to make it all fit and to be able to just speak to a wider audience of PhDs who will be able to go through the process without the benefit of the program. And so the
Mhm.
first phase is clarity, helping the faculty member to have the mindset that visibility outside of academe, reaching other people is okay, and helping them understand that they have value outside of higher ed, because in order for them to be out here sharing their work with everyday people, they have to understand that that's okay. And typically in our higher ed ivory tower, we're not necessarily taught that's okay. That's a good place for marketing departments at universities to start telling them that, hey, we want you to do this because it's helpful to your job stability, it's helpful to the university, it's helpful for enrollment. The second step is vision, having the faculty member really understand what their vision is in building their platform in the online space. 100% of the faculty that come to me just aren't clear how to articulate everything that they do, for people, right? And so they're used to talking to other PhDs, and they also have a lot of hesitancy around posting on social media. They're scared of trolls. They don't know what to say, and so the vision piece is helping them understand how they can be intentional in building this platform, and what platforms they want to be on. A lot of faculty do care about TED Talks, so we do teach that, but some people don't, and that's okay. But there's other niche platforms that they can focus in on that have really big followings, depending on their area of expertise. So getting the vision clear. The third step is the brand assets. So we're not talking about things like logos and color schemes. We're talking about the brand statement, the brand adjectives, the brand archetype. What's the story you can tell around your research, right? Numbers and data and
Mm-hmm.
qualitative research is great, but you need to have a story behind why you do what you do. So we help them craft that story, and connect all the dots in that phase one for clarity. And then phase two is the next three steps. And these steps are all about getting media placements, high level media placements, Washington Post, Forbes.com, but also smaller places, identifying podcast niche that are relevant to the thing that they research, the thing that they're talking about, and empowering them to land those interviews. And this is all about building SEO on Google, so that when that faculty member has keywords that they want to be talking about, when a journalist types in those keywords into Google, their name will come up so that they can continue to get these opportunities. And so all of phase two is all of the things you would expect to build your brand online, the social media strategy, all of that good stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. And as you were talking, and this hadn't occurred to me before, but the other relevance of this for our audience is I talk to a lot of marketing directors that they try to get on podcasts. They try to do, conferences, speaking engagement, keynote sessions and stuff like that. And I asked them why, and I'm like, why you work for a college? Like, why bother like building a brand when that's not, your salary isn't really, necessarily directly tied to that. And they're usually like, well, it's for career purposes. Like I want to like just build my resume, build my authority as a higher ed marketer, and just get out there more and kind of move up the ladder, maybe move into a CMO role. So as you're talking, I'm thinking even for our audience beyond just helping people, helping professors and things like get their research out there and build their brands. I think a lot of this stuff applies to the efforts that our listeners are probably already making. Some of our listeners of like really trying to build a platform for themselves. So
Yeah,
I
so I
just,
teach I teach exactly. I teach creative entrepreneurship as well, and it's all the same strategy. Like the 9 steps are the same no matter what role you're in, whether you're building a personal brand or we're building a faculty member's brand or you're a CMO trying to build your brand and become a thought leader. The 9 steps are really the same. It's just for me in
yeah,
my Power Your Research program targeting it to the niche. So when I work with creative entrepreneurs, it's just talking in a language that my creatives will understand.
yeah, yeah. I like that. Super important to have a niche. And because a lot of these a lot of these things, and a lot of what I do at Unveiled, it applies to I mean, I work with corporate clients all the time. People always ask me like, are you allowed to work with, if we're not a college, will you still make videos for us? And I'm like, of course. It's like all the same stuff. I just happen to like
That's
focus it
right.
on higher ed. Quick break here. I have a question for you. Have you ever had to manage the production of a video before for your school, where you were the person that had to coordinate all the scheduling? Like you had like 5 people that needed to be interviewed for this thing, and you had to juggle all the schedules and figure out how to line them up for individual slots miraculously on the same day. And on top of that, you had to talk to like your facilities guy and make sure the door to the engineering lab was going to be open at a certain time so the crew could get in there, film some B-roll. You had to coordinate volunteers to be in the footage and blah, 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 and, right? Let me tell you something. Working with an outside video vendor should not look like this. Unfortunately, I've worked with enough video folks to know that the mainstream school of thought is they will coordinate the crew and all the production stuff, the editing, etc., and they will expect you to coordinate all your folks. And I'll be honest, sometimes there's stuff that the video people just can't coordinate for you. Like, I'm probably not going to email your college's president out of the blue to ask them to be in this video and to coordinate their schedule when they've never heard of me or this project. Like, that just makes more sense coming from you, at least to get their initial buy-in. But as much as possible, your job should be to get buy-in from all the right people and then introduce those stakeholders to the video producer to coordinate, which is not you. Unfortunately, we live in a world where it just doesn't work like that most of the time. In fact, I talked to a marketing director at a pretty well-known art school recently who told me he hired this video crew to film a couple program promo videos, and they paid a lot of extra money. This was a bit of a splurge, is the impression I got. And they got 2 videos out of the deal. And he said to me, all that money we paid and I still had to coordinate everything. Like, we paid a premium for someone to do these videos and I was doing all the grunt work. So here's the deal. At Unveiled, one of the things we take really seriously is making sure the process is easy on you, especially that pre-production process, which is where a lot of the not fun stuff tends to show up. So whether we're working together through our video storytelling subscriptions, a big commercial, or maybe a smaller one-off video project, know that in addition to delivering a great end product, we also have our eyes on making that a smooth and oftentimes fun journey along the way. And even after it's done, we want to make sure you're set up for success, which is why we give you all the raw footage, all that B-roll and interview footage to repurpose however you want at no extra charge. So if you have video needs right now, don't let the management of those projects stress you out. We are your partners in taking as much work off your plate as possible. So if that's you, I want you to head over to unveiled.tv. That's UNVEILD.tv and book a call with me. And let's talk about how we can best support you. All right, back to the show. So let's start with step number 1, mindset. I want to talk about helping faculty understand that their work has value outside of academia. So expand on that for us a little bit.
Yeah, I think if you're in a marketing position at a university, you probably didn't go through kind of the PhD tenure track pipeline, so you don't understand the nuances of a faculty member and what they're thinking. Faculty members have a lot of fear, right? They have a lot of fear, more fear than probably most people would expect. But there's a correlation between being highly educated and imposter syndrome. And so if
Mm.
a CMO can say to a faculty member, starting with mindset that we want you to do this, we want to empower you to do this, this is helpful for everybody, that is the place that you have to start. Otherwise, they're not going to be confident in being out here talking about anything. If you talk to any faculty member, really, and they open up to you, one of the things that you'll find out is they're not comfortable telling their other colleagues, like, hey, I do want to be on TV. Hey, I do want to be on NPR. Hey, I do want to do a TEDx talk, because some academics will say, oh, if you are on TV, then you're not doing real research, which obviously you can walk and chew
Yeah.
gum. But for my people in marketing departments trying to empower their faculty members and grow the brand for the university, you really have to kind of do the mindset stuff first if you want to empower your faculty to do that work.
And I think that's a big barrier to get over, because as you were talking, I'm thinking
It's
about my wife,
huge.
who is very my wife is a trauma therapist, very specially focused in trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy. There are not very many of them in Michigan, where I'm from. And for years I have encouraged her to like do a blog or do a course, like, talk to, adoptive parents and foster parents that want to understand their children's behaviors and where they're coming from and stuff like that. And her response is always, yeah, but like there's other people, other clinicians that are better than me. It's like this
Yep.
imposter
It's
syndrome thing.
huge.
I'm
This
like,
is huge.
yeah,
Exactly.
of course, but
It's
yeah, it's like,
huge.
of course there are, but like that just by putting yourself out there doesn't mean you're trying to say that you are the best. And in fact, like,
Yes.
I actually really hate when any organization comes out and says they're the leading voice
Hmm.
in this or that, or they're the leading business in this or that. Cause it's like, what does that really mean? Like, based on what? who named you the leading this or that? Like, you named yourself that. So
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
so yeah, I don't think you have to. I don't think stepping out there into the public space and bringing your work to, you know, your knowledge to other people is saying that you are the best and you're going to be judged against whether or not you're the best. I think it's just saying, hey, everyone has something of value, and maybe you have some very specific things to communicate, and a way of communicating that's going to help people understand, because it might even just be about the way that you present the information, not so much the
Hmm.
information itself. Like I look at you know, Brene Brown, who is you know, huge. I mean, her whole thing is research, but like I feel
Yep.
like her benefit is the way that she can tell a story.
Yep.
You know, is she the best researcher? I don't know, but I like listening to her because it's really engaging.
Yes. Yes. And just her first TED talk brought a lot of visibility to her university because it blew up. And again, universities should be empowering their faculty to be that, to do that for the ones that want it, for the faculty that want it.
Yeah. And just in just continuing down this track, I've been doing research on what videos are working in higher ed across, you know, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Reels, and then long form YouTube videos. One of the sections in this presentation that I'm coming up with is thought leadership, and it is remarkable how seemingly boring things just absolutely take off. Like, you know, this one professor I'm looking at, like this professor from University of California, San Francisco, UCSF. He's got a YouTube short that came out in the past year. It has 1 million views, almost 1,000 comments, 55,000 likes, and it's just him at a podium talking about why you shouldn't eat sugar. You know, it's like
Yep.
it's like
Yep.
new groundbreaking research on the effects of reducing added sugar in your diet, and I'm like, there's nothing that special. It's just that he got out there, you know,
Yes.
and like a
Yes.
million people watched this.
Exactly. And universities have faculty present on campus all the time. So this is low-hanging fruit. Mic them up, put a video camera in front of them for a presentation that they were already going to do anyway, and you should start chopping up those clips and either putting them on your university website or giving them to the faculty member to have easy social media content. These things are so easy to do today, and you don't see a lot of universities doing them. And the other thing is, when you show support for your faculty members, they are more likely to put the university that they work for in their byline, because when they're out here doing
Right.
all these amazing things, I don't have to say professor at Rider University. I could take that off. But when I know the university supports me, I'm happy to mention their name in podcast interviews when I'm in the LA Times, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I was reading Freakonomics. I'm like 20 years behind on reading this book, but it's co-written by a professor at University of Chicago. They talk about University of Chicago a lot in that book, and I actually know two people who either went to U Chicago or applied because they read Freakonomics. Like
Yeah.
that's the one reason they went to U Chicago.
Yeah, now imagine all the faculty members who already write books anyway so that they can get their next promotion. If they're in love with their university because their university is supporting them, they're going to be mentioning the university they work for all over that book. And yeah, people do go ahead and Google that university, and like now they write this cool professor that they look up to. Now they want to kind of go and do a visit or learn more about it. So yeah, absolutely. It's a great example.
Okay, cool. All right. So step 2 is vision, getting faculty clear on their vision for building their platform and what it looks like for them. What are some things that you address with faculty when it comes to vision? What are some of those conversations like?
Getting them clear on if you want to amplify your platform, what does this look like? So tying into some of the mindset things, some faculty do not want to be on social media. right? But you have to be on social media because everybody's on their phone. And so helping them understand you don't have to be on
Hmm.
all the platforms, but let's pick two that you already like and that your audience is already on. And let's just build off of those two as the first step. We also get them to think a little bit outside of higher ed, because if you want to build your platform and get visibility, you have to feel comfortable thinking outside of higher ed, because what we're talking about is not just having your work in front of other academics. What, by the way, when you do this work, your citations get out there as well, right? Your scholarship gets more hits as well, right? This is the correlation that I don't think a lot of academics make. When my book is in the New York Times, absolutely I'm going to get more Google Scholar citations for that academic book. And so in here, it's taking their idea for amplifying their platform out of their head and putting it on a piece of paper. Because if it just lives in your head, you're not going to do anything with it. But when you can identify this is the vision for 1 year, 3 year, and 10 years, because we're not just talking about a 6 month thing, or we're talking about like you're doing this work that you're passionate about and you're doing a 10-year plan, right? If you're going to do a podcast, a 1 year plan is not going to cut it, because at the 1 year mark, you might still only have like 10 downloads a month. We're talking about 10 years, right? You got to be in it for the long run. And so helping them detail that level of vision in this step is what they'd be doing.
I think that's so important, like to really help them understand that this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is like,
Mhm.
if they're going to start a podcast or they're going to be on Instagram or TikTok, it is such a slow build. And they might do this for 6 or 8 months and feel like, man, nothing's hitting. Why am I doing this? But on the other side of that success, it's really compounds. Like on the other side of that, once you start getting momentum, it really takes off, and things start happening. And so it's like, I really think there's so many like social media gurus and podcasting gurus out there that will say, oh, I here's how I got 1 million views, and I started a brand new channel. I got it in 30 days. It's like, it
Mm.
was luck. The answer is that was luck.
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
um,
Yo, absolutely.
99% of people need to really understand that it's going to be a slow build. And I don't think that we talk about that enough. And I think it really just discourages people when they're not maybe even already wanting to do social media, but they do it reluctantly, to then also not see results right away, when they're expecting that they were told this was supposed to be like the silver bullet.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I love that. I love that. Just encouraging a slow build. So we were talking about brand building, and it's not about the colors and the logo and stuff. And I think that that's probably the most important part of a brand is like the thought that is behind the brand and the story that you are building around your work. Secondary is the visual assets. But talk about brand building. What are some of those conversations? Like, what are some challenges in helping faculty build a brand?
Yeah, so in that second step, we have them create, in the vision step, we have them create a purpose statement. And then we move to that brand building step and helping them understand, your logos and your color schemes are not the most important things. The most important thing is going to be, what's your archetype? What's your story? So there's 12 brand archetypes. We go over all of them in the book. Mine happens to be the sage. And so that's going to frame who you show up as on social media. So all of this is not confusing. And it simply is who you already are, but it gives you a frame so that you're not all over the place. You're going to identify your brand adjectives. These are going to be 3 brand adjectives. For example, mine's are smart, fearless, and empowering. And again, this is going to give me a lens to show up in the online space and also in the in-person space. If my content doesn't hit on one or all 3 of those things, I shouldn't be posting it, because I need to stay clear and consistent for my audience. If I just go a whole week posting videos with me and my son, I'm going to lose my audience because they're there for me to give them academic branding advice, right? If I want to post a video about my son, it has to some way connect back to what my target audience wants. I'm giving the example of, my Power Your Research marketing, but for my personal brand over on LinkedIn, it still has to have a niche, but you do get to be a full person. Like, you don't have to give up who you are, but it still has to connect back through the lens of your frame. And this gets a little bit difficult, but this is why we have these steps in place, because it makes so much sense when you can articulate what you do in 5 seconds, rather than coming in with the unclarity of, but I'm a researcher and an academic, but I also have this other talent that I like to do, which is crocheting. This clarity phase in totality is going to show you how you can incorporate as much of yourself into the niche and the people that you're speaking to.
Yeah, I don't think enough people understand LinkedIn, especially in higher ed. Um, I think, I get bored of like the higher ed people that I follow that all they post is like, we're hiring for this thing, or like, look, we're in the news. It's like, great. It's like, celebrate with me kind of stuff. It's like, and then
Yep.
maybe if it was like 5% that stuff, I think I would celebrate with you. But if it's like, that's all you post, like you're really missing an opportunity to to show your expertise and share knowledge in a way that people are going to vibe with, and that's going to build a following on LinkedIn. As soon as I started getting out of that, like, here's what I'm doing kind of mindset around, what I put, like, oh, here's the project I'm working on. As soon as I got out of that and started like really talking more about storytelling and messaging and stuff like that, like things really started to take off. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I love the encouragement of really defining some guardrails for, for yourself, for your brand, about what it is that you talk about.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Like, it has to be, the things that you post on social media, whether you're building a personal brand, which is what academics are doing, it has to be the three main stages of a sales funnel. You're posting for brand awareness, you're posting for brand trust, or you're posting for people to make a sale. If it doesn't fit into those three things based on the framework that we already discussed, you shouldn't be posting it. Like, nobody, if you're going to post we don't need your political views if you are trying to like build a niche and make money, right?
yeah.
Save that for your dinner table with your family.
Right. Exactly. So step 4, media strategy and placement. What would you say are like the main levers to pull for getting media coverage?
um Outreach and clarity. And when you email a producer or a host or a journalist, you need to answer why they should have you on their platform. There should be no guesses. They shouldn't have to figure it out. So is it timely, relevant, and newsworthy? Timely, relevant, and newsworthy. Your email should communicate those things to a journalist or producer in as few words as possible because they're busy and they're not going to click your
Mhm.
attachment or your links. It needs to be in one short paragraph. I love your work. I've read some of your articles. I think my work would fit in nicely. Here's why it's relevant, timely, and newsworthy. I think your audience will love it. Tell them why their audience would love it. And that's it. Keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a PR strategist on the show earlier who said, like, we're talking about pitching to media outlets with video, and she's like, make it as easy as possible. Like, give them just the good clips, for example. Don't make them sort through 30 minutes of raw footage, to edit this thing. Everything is around making it as easy as possible for these busy people to pick you up and launch a story about you.
Yep, absolutely.
So number 5 is crafting a compelling story around their research. Turning data into engaging narratives. So what goes into that? Because I know that there's data and then there's data storytelling, for example. And there's like two very different disciplines that are so closely linked. What is the importance of storytelling for you?
So you kind of alluded to it earlier, and there's a lot of different frameworks that we teach for the storytelling aspect. Some of them we already talked about with the brand archetypes and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different directions I can take this question, but for simplicity purposes, actionable things that somebody can do right now if they're listening to this podcast. Part of building a brand is learning storytelling. The easiest way to do that is start simply with the hero's journey. Your favorite movie probably uses the hero's journey. You want to take a truncated version of the hero's journey and turn that into your social media content, whether it's a 30-second video or even if it's kind of the timeline of the content you're posting. So you said something earlier about nobody just wants to see your wins all of the time. No, we don't. People are going to unfollow you if you're only sharing, hey, I got a new research article. Hey, I just was on this stage talking. Um, and there's a psychology behind this because if you only share your wins, people start to compare themselves to you and they start to feel inadequate. So they will unfollow you, right? This is not about like how
Mm.
you, it's just a fact, right? This is the psychological component. You need to share your sad stories. You need to share your struggles on this podcast. If you have technology issues, you need to tell your audience, hey, I had technology issues, right? This is just an example. I was really frustrated. Here's how I overcame it. Because
Yeah.
the thing that you're doing is showing this bad thing happened. This is how I felt. Show, don't tell. And then this is how I overcame it. Because the last part of your video or the last part of the article or the last part of whatever the content is helping the audience learn. The audience is there for your sad story so that they can learn. That's what makes content relatable. If you're not doing that, you're not going to be able to grow your following. Things that go
You
viral
just
are
gave me a
not
great
selling your,
idea for,
yeah. Things that go viral are not you sharing your podcast link or sharing your sales link. Things that go viral are you sharing your story without selling anything.
yeah,
Because going viral is going to get you
yeah.
sales anyway. Even if you don't go viral, if you just get more engagement, they're going to engage with the story, not just your wins. So that when you share your wins, they will celebrate with you because you just spent 30 days telling them about all of the tough things, the actual behind the scene things that we experience. So on day 30, when you share your win, they are celebrating because they know what you had to go through to get that publication, to get your first 100,000 downloads on the podcast, to publish the book, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I've never thought about it that way. What you said earlier about people unfollow you if they feel like they can't compare to you, um, and that's probably what's just one of those hidden subconscious things where it's like. Now it makes me think of like all the the people I see in my LinkedIn feed. They're like, I did this, or I got this promotion, or I'm the keynote speaker at this thing, and I'm like, that's cool. But like, oh, what went wrong? I tell me a time when you like applied to one of these conferences and you got rejected. And
Exactly.
how many conferences and keynote speaking sessions did you apply for and got rejected before you got the one that you posted about?
Exactly. One of the posts that went viral for me the first time was me talking about writing for Marvel Comics when I got to write for Marvel Comics. In that video, I didn't talk about, hey, I published a book with Marvel Comics. I talked about Marvel Comics ignoring me for years and how I used Fiverr.com to get the email address of the editor in chief and like and just the process of how it didn't work and how I just forgot about it and moved on and then they asked me to write. So it's a different way of doing it. If I had just shared, hey, I wrote for Marvel Comics, yay, doesn't go viral. Not going to go viral. It has to be the story of the hero's journey.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm as I've probably mentioned on previous episodes, I'm binging all of the Top Chef episodes. And one of the things that I noticed that they focus on in the, because there's like the cooking and then there's like the personality behind the chefs and their backstory and stuff. And, there are some chefs that they focus on that are like, I have applied to Top Chef 5 times and got rejected. And finally I told myself like this was the last time I was going to apply and I got in. And like that's the human experience. That's
Yep.
90% of how life works. But what you hear about is like
Yep.
the 0.5% of people that, that got this
Yep.
win you don't ever hear about the journey that it took to get there. So yeah, that's really good. I love I think that's a good like pillar for any content marketer to have in their back pocket, is like, if you're running out of things to post, what is the time that you failed? I don't think that our minds go to that. Like, let me tell about a time when I screwed up. We
Hmm.
think about like, oh,
Exactly.
what's some new research, or what's some new interesting thing I can come up with to say. But some of it's just
Exactly.
telling stories that people can relate
Yeah.
to.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And then lastly is strategies for landing speaking engagements. So like, how someone wants to book a TED talk, what if I want to book a TED talk, which I do, what should I do?
So you're probably not going to get on the TED stage first. First, you should be focusing on a TEDx talk. And I have a free video on YouTube that shows you exactly how to do a TEDx talk, because there are local TEDx opportunities everywhere. The cool thing is, I did my TEDx talk, and sometimes it goes on the TED.com page. So my TEDx talk is on the official TED.com page. And if it does really, really well, you might be invited to the TED conference. But even if it doesn't, like my TEDx talk has like 30,000 views. And it's just so find my YouTube video. It's free. It's easy to find how to land a TEDx talk. And then the other thing is, like, when you do the TEDx talk, it's much like publishing a book. Nobody's gonna watch it if you don't have a marketing strategy. I didn't get to 30K views on my TEDx talk just because I posted it. You have
Hmm.
it's the same thing. It's everything we've been talking about. You got to tell a story around it. You got to have a strategy around it. If you build it, they will not come. If you promote
Right.
it, they will. And so just people being mindful that doing the TEDx talk is just the first step.
Yeah. Oh, again, I I love that. I'm like getting so passionate about everything you're saying, because it's like everything that I think about lately, where it's like, I think more people would succeed in a digital marketing context if they actually understood what it really takes to get traction on something.
Yep. I mean, it's a everyday commitment. It's just an everyday commitment. And you may never go viral, but you have small wins every week. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you go viral and get 100,000 followers, or if you just had small wins once a month and got 100,000 followers. So what? You still got the followers. And by the way, you can get to six figures without having all of those followers. But the follower count absolutely does matter for more opportunities, because it goes back to the top of the sales funnel, brand awareness. Just obviously, if more people know about you, you're going to have more opportunities. But I want people to understand that you can get to six figures with 3,000 followers, as long as they are the right followers, right? So the
Hmm.
quality, start focusing on the quality first if you're just starting out, or don't have a big account yet.
Yeah. I look at my podcast as a great example of that. Like, we don't get tons of downloads every month. And honestly, I don't even pay attention to it. But like, the amount of wins I could tell you of just from having a podcast, and the people that I've met through interviewing them, just the opportunities that I've gotten, not just for business, but just like really rich friendships and relationships and stuff. Um, it's so much more than just what the numbers say. The stats, the analytics really don't communicate even a third of what you're
Exactly.
going to experience by building a platform for yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why you
Yeah.
can't be, if you're thinking about building a brand, or it can't be just about the money, because that's not going to get you up every day to record these podcasts. It's just not.
Mm-mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. Loved having you on. I'm really excited for our audience to dive into this. As I said, I think it's going to be great for marketers who, higher ed marketers and communicators that want to work with their faculty and help their faculty build their brands. But also, I think we've sort of bled into tips that really are just applicable across the board, uh, for building any sort of platform in any context. So thank you so much for being here. I
Thank
want to
you.
ask, where can people connect with you at?
So at Dr. Sheena Howard, DrSheena I'm at Dr. Sheena Howard on everything. And certainly for the marketing professionals listening, if you want me to come in and speak to a group of your faculty on how they can build their brand, I am certainly open for speaking engagements. We also can do custom branded Power Your Research programs only for specific departments or universities. If you just want to send a whole bunch of people through and have access through your company procurement site or something like that, yeah, reach out to me. You can find me at Dr. Sheena Howard anywhere.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, John.
Thanks for listening. 3 things I want to give you before you go. Number 1, reminder to sign up for my free weekly newsletter, all about creating content that resonates emotionally with your audience. And you can do that at unveiled.tv/newsletter. Unveiled is spelled Unveiled. Number 2, if you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Share it with your team, your boss, your dog, whatever. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love for you to do that. Number 3, reach out to me. If you have comments, questions, you want to talk about a video project, whatever, my email is john@unveiled.tv. John is spelled John, or follow me on LinkedIn. If you're searching for me, my last name is spelled Azoni. That's all for today, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode of the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast. Thanks.